secret lives can be the death of you.
A brutal killing.
She was just this lovable girl who had no enemies.
There was no reason for this.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
The dangers of internet dating, it's a game of Russian roulette.
Only her closest friends knew that she had this wild side.
There's plenty of crazy people out there that, she might have sent a picture to.
The truth will be revealed.
She fought for her life.
And that's a pretty violent way to kill somebody.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Staten Island's Willowbrook neighborhood. A world away from the hustle and bustle of New York.
It's basically like Smallville, USA. The neighborhood itself is made up of a lot of Orthodox Jewish families.
On a sunny Saturday, you'll see people walking to the synagogue. Safe, quiet area.
But when a mother comes home one night after work, she finds it far too quiet.
Eliza Posi came home around 7 p.m. that night. Something didn't appear to be right from the beginning.
The back door appeared to be open. She thought her daughter, Eliza, would still be at work.
The house appeared to be in disarray. There was papers thrown on the floor, drawers open, objects thrown all over the ground. The first thing she did is to call her daughter to see if Eliza was okay. There was no answer. She was, upset and worried. She goes to check her daughter's bedroom door. It's locked.
She panicked. She ran outside. She called 911 and waited for the police to come.
She felt that something bad happened, and then she didn't want to see that by herself.
NYPD Detective Michael Kenny is called to the scene.
When the police come in, they break down the door. Eliza Posi was found dead in her bedroom. She was 18 years old.
Once the police told Seema what had happened to Eliza, she just started shrieking, screaming, like people who didn't even know what was going on were coming out of the houses to see what was going on outside. She could not believe the daughter that she just left several hours earlier was now dead.
To capture the killer, Detective Kenny will need to piece together Eliza's final day on Earth.
The last 24 hours are critical to any investigation. It provides the information the investigator needs, such as who, what, where, when, and why. And that applies to every murder case as you're trying to solve it.
The first thing we do in trying to determine the time of death was speak to the last people that spoke to her. So our first interview, obviously, would be Seema, her mother. When Seema left around 10 a.m. in the morning to go to work, Eliza was still home. Eliza normally would have been going to work around 1 p.m. That particular day, she called in late. So she was going to work after 1 o'clock. Seema comes home around 7. So somewhere between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. is when Eliza was killed.
Through tears, her mother provides the details of Eliza's life. now cut tragically short.
Eliza and her mother were very close. This was her little girl who she was looking forward to, watching grow up and get married and have kids. She just graduated high school. She was taking off a year just to work and save up some money. She was just a very friendly, outgoing girl, liked by anybody who knew her. Eliza grew up in a very religious, Orthodox household. Her mother and father divorced about a year before the murder, and her father moved back to Israel.
Eliza's mother isn't the only family member interviewed at the scene.
Eliza had a half-brother, Raviv Gabe, and he was just getting married as the parents got divorced.
Raviv ran a kosher cookie business. I wanted to know what he did that day, where he was. Raviv told me that he was delivering cookies. He was out on Long Island around 1 p.m. Making a delivery. After he learned of his sister's death, he came to the house to console his mother. Raviv was with Seema, hugging her, consoling her, and asking me a lot of questions. How could somebody do this? We need to solve this case.
For Detective Kenny and his team, the first step is to examine the crime scene.
There's Eliza laying on the ground, naked. There was a pillow over her face, a towel underneath her, and a mattress that was pulled over part of her body.
Her hair was wet still, so they were theorizing that she would have just come out of the shower.
But it almost appeared that she was placed there. It looked like there was some bruising on the face. There wasn't a lot of trauma to the neck.
Suffocation is one of those types of murder that requires the victim to be overpowered by the assailant. It is not a death that is easily accomplished if the victim is able to fight and struggle, and therefore it can take a prolonged period of time, and there's an element of pain and suffering.
But this person overpowered Eliza pretty quickly, but you would think it would be a male, somebody bigger and stronger than she was.
She was in a state of undress, which automatically you have to entertain the possibility that there was sexual assault or sexual activity.
We fingerprinted all the areas that we could. We bagged the pillow that was over her face, the towel that was underneath Eliza. There was a spot or two of blood on the towel.
And they discovered some skin under her fingernails. Of course, they scraped that and sent that to the lab also to check for DNA.
When investigating a crime such as this, you want to throw a wide net and try to collect as much evidence and data as possible.
We knew that ultimately some DNA would be coming back from Eliza, whether the blood stain or the stuff under her fingernails. I felt early on that anybody I spoke to, I would take a DNA swab.
But processing this evidence takes time.
The CSI effect, as it's known, has altered the public's perception of how long things take. Crimes are not solved in 2 hours. It takes hours and hours of examining evidence and analyzing test results that come back.
Obviously, you're not going to stop our investigation and just wait till it comes back. This was a high-profile case, and the pressure to solve this case was strong.
Detectives work to uncover what brought the killer into the Parsey's home.
There was a few possibilities in how Eliza was killed. The first, obviously, being a burglary. Given that the house was in disarray, that was obviously our first angle.
After the police did a search, they determined that maybe a few dollars and some jewelry was missing.
If you're breaking into a house to steal spare change and the homeowner comes in, what the burglar is thinking is, I can try to run away, but I may not make it. And if I don't make it, then I'm going to jail for a long time. And so they make a split-second decision and they commit a murder.
In this particular case, it appeared that somebody entered through the rear door. The first thing you want to check is people's MOs. Is there a pattern? Is there a particular person that's going around, going through unlocked back doors?
Detectives canvass the neighborhood, looking for a lead. They discover a community in shock.
It's not a place where you get murders. But here you have a girl who everybody might have saw the day before, waving, saying hi. And now they find out that she's dead and possibly raped in her own bedroom. I mean, they just couldn't fathom it. This is something you see on the 6 o'clock news in another neighborhood, not in their backyard. It's also a neighborhood where neighbors look out for each other. If there's a stranger, people take notice.
Looking at the window from 1 p.m. to 7, the neighbors did identify this particular group of landscapers that were in that vicinity at the window where Eliza could have been killed. That would be the opportunity if there's a bunch of people cutting lawns. Nobody would take a second look if somebody was to walk down into the driveway, go in the back of the house, and try doors. There was 5 young men. We end up interviewing each one of them. All 5 of the landscapers, we took DNA swabs, and we took fingerprints. It was also helpful to get a reaction on somebody not wanting to be swabbed or being swabbed. Each one of them were very cooperative. My gut was that they weren't involved, that they were just landscapers doing their job.
They look to Eliza herself for more clues.
And looking at the body, it didn't appear like there was a substantial struggle. If somebody broke into your house and it was a stranger, there would be some screaming and yelling, maybe chasing, running around. If Eliza was familiar with the assailant, it might have been like, what are you doing here? And then an attack happened.
A key detail from the crime scene adds weight to this theory.
In cases in which the body is covered and the body is concealed, that suggests that the murderer has feelings of shame about what they've done.
They can't handle looking at the dead person, which leads the investigator to believe this killer knew the dead person.
Detectives turn to her brother Raviv to learn more about her relationships.
Raviv gave us some direction on whom we want to speak to regarding her personal life. Most of his conversation was directed at the ex-boyfriend. He insisted that we look at him, that he was a controlling, aggressive ex-boyfriend that had feelings for her that were still unresolved. Raviv felt strongly that this was the person who killed Eliza.
The troubled history between Eliza Parsey and her former boyfriend Marique has caught the attention of the NYPD.
She had broken up with him a little while before, and he did not take it well. On surface, it's just a couple of teenagers breaking up. This was a little more intense. She was this Jewish Orthodox girl, and he was a Muslim, came from a Muslim family, so some people wondered if that's the reason why she broke up with him.
The families didn't really want them together in the first place.
He started to stalk her, follow her to work, follow her after work, seeing where she was, who she hung out with. He just wouldn't take a no from her. There was one time when he even broke in. She was sleeping, and she woke up to see him standing over her bed.
He was definitely somebody that we were looking at, a person of interest that we felt strongly that he might have been involved. We start going into some of his background. We came to understand that he had some sort of business connections with fake handbags. He was somewhat of a quasi-criminal. He wasn't an altar boy, so to speak.
Then, Marique shows up at the crime scene.
It's rare to have persons who I will call witnesses for now, waiting at the crime scene to volunteer information to the police. It's unusual.
I felt it was important to grab him, bring him back to the precinct, and basically get a timeline from him in the last 24 hours where he's been. His whereabouts for those 24 hours was, I was home, sleeping, and did this and that. He didn't have a concrete alibi, especially the window that we were looking at from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Detectives take Marique's DNA and look into his movements on the day of the murder.
Eliza lived in Staten Island, and Staten Island is separated from the rest of New York City by the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. A lot of New Yorkers have what they call an easy pass. They will have a time and date when somebody went over the bridge and paid the toll. So this is a very effective tool for police.
We ordered the Easy Pass records, we ordered his telephone records. We were waiting for them to come back, along with the DNA.
Marique's behavior takes a strange turn.
Marique showed up at the funeral.
It was quite the ruckus. In fact, I think Raviv had to be restrained from going after him. The mother was yelling and screaming. They had to forcibly remove the ex-boyfriend from the services. For the ex-boyfriend to go to the funeral, from my perspective, there's be a couple of reasons. Number one, he wanted to go to appear that he was grieving Eliza just like everybody else. He also might have wanted to go to see other people's reaction, what information he might be able to gather from the conversations at the service. Staying close to the investigation could be a reason to be there. He was a constant person of interest.
As the spotlight glares over Marique, Eliza's pathology exam reveals a key new detail.
It was determined that she was not raped, but it was determined that she recently had consensual sex with someone.
One of the angles that they're normally going to look at is talking to Eliza's friends to get an idea of the person that died. And in the conversation, they let us know there was this kind of secret life that Eliza was living.
Only her closest friends knew that she had this wild side to her, where she would go into clubs in the city, and sometimes she would meet somebody that night. And to the people on the block or her neighborhood, that was probably just as shocking, if not more, than the murder itself.
She had a very solid community of people that were the same as her. And, at 18 to say, you know what, let me go into the city, find somebody different, find somebody more fun. There's a certain maturity to think of that and want to explore outside your own little community.
But Eliza was doing more than frequenting clubs.
We found that Eliza was meeting people on the internet and having sexual encounters with the people that she met. Back then, there was no Instagram, there wasn't Facebook. The internet was still in a kind of an infancy stage. It was a bit of a oddity. Was it ill-advised to meet people on the internet? Yes.
The dangers of internet dating is it's a game of Russian roulette. You do not know what is going to happen to you if you get into a closed room with a person you've never met before.
There's plenty of crazy people out there that she might have sent a picture to, and that was enough to try and track her down. She might have said where she lives, and that was the extent of their exchange. And he might have come and killed her.
Detectives begin the daunting task of tracing Eliza's online activity.
When we actually see a murder that the theory is it was internet dating based, they're very difficult to solve because of the ability to hide behind a website, to hide behind an email address, to hide the address out of the country. It's very difficult to deal with and solve because you're dealing with fake identities all the time.
They manage to uncover a direct link to Eliza's timeline.
Police found out that Eliza was supposed to meet up with somebody that she had met online, and she had talked to him the night before her death, and that she had made plans to meet up with him in the near future.
The old adage is if you have a dead woman, you put her last 4 boyfriends in a room and one of them did it.
Is this internet encounter with this young man, maybe he wanted something more and she didn't want to give him it.
Detectives hunting Eliza Parsey's killer have a new person of interest, a man she met online.
Nobody was calling us and say, by the way, I also met Eliza on the internet, and we were intimate. So we had to do our due diligence and find this young man.
Eliza's communication with him reveals another key detail.
The day before she was killed, he did meet with her after 10 o'clock when Seema left. They were sexually active.
What she would do is, her mother had a pretty set schedule, so she knew when she would leave and come back. She would have people come over to her house, and instead of coming in through the front, she would leave the back door open, and this way no one would see them.
I don't know if that was a daily thing, if he would have came back the next day at 10 o'clock. He would have been somebody that was familiar with the area, familiar with the place, familiar with when mom's not home. So he would definitely fit in the timeline of when she was killed.
In order to speak with him, they must first track him down.
We had some forensic detectives taking IP addresses and matching them with people.
They trace the young man to a home in Brooklyn. Police bring him in for questioning.
If you've communicated with a person on a computer, there's no way of hiding that. And there will never be a way for you to deny that. Full stop.
He was cooperative. He was forthright that he did know her, that he did meet her, that he'd been to the house, how it was coordinated. You know, he waited for her sometimes. If he was there too early, he would have to walk around the block. He knew the mother's car. He would have to wait to see to make sure that they didn't cross paths. He was very forthright regarding the relationship, that it was a secret relationship, that they met on the internet, that there was only a couple of encounters. When I told him that she was murdered, he was obviously upset. He was surprised. But he did say that he did not meet her on the day she was killed. All this stuff was information that he gave me freely, and he also freely gave me his DNA. We ordered the Easy Pass records. We ordered his telephone records. I didn't feel that he was a person of interest.
Investigators continue to scour Eliza's digital history.
For each person that we identified and she met on the internet, I would go through a timeline. And I would have them do the 24 hours, what they did, where they were, who they were with during that time, how they knew Eliza. And obviously I would take a DNA swab of each one of them. In interviewing each of the person that we identified, I didn't have a specific feeling that any one of them was a person of interest. They seemed to be people that were involved.
They were looking at these people, but no one was ruled out. Eliza's murder was not your typical homicide, but the detectives that work it, they were very dogged. That's the thing with homicide detectives. You know, they take it personal. It's almost like one of theirs, one of their family, and they work, you know, it seems like they work that much harder. When this one, they left no stone unturned, all while waiting for the DNA to come back.
As police quietly investigate Eliza's secret life, the press is making it public.
It went from a burglary to now here's a young, pretty girl who might have been caught up in some kind of sexual encounter, and you know that gets the press a little more interested.
It was an unfair dramatization of what what's going on. I personally felt bad about that. I did get phone calls from Seema, asking me, and she found that out from the news. It wasn't fun to tell the mother that she learned from the news that her daughter, who was 18, was sexually active with strangers. It wasn't a comfortable conversation. When Eliza was 18, my daughters were like 15, 16. Every once in a while, those things can creep in. You can say, oh, my daughter, is home alone at times. But you have to be able to separate your professional from your personal life. You see the things that people have done to another, and you try not to get hardened from it, but you have to look at it as a job. You're there to make a difference. You're there to get from A to Z, and you have to stay focused.
This focus leads to detectives uncovering her name on a police report.
This kind of secret life that Eliza was living, unbeknownst to her mother and her brother, had its consequences. She made a report that she was sexually assaulted.
She left the bar in Harlem and went to an apartment, and when she woke up, there were several naked men standing over her.
Could have one of these 4 or 5 assailants looked for retribution towards her for this assault? I didn't do anything, and you're causing trouble for me. I don't want to be arrested, and I'm going to now kill you.
A report claiming Eliza was sexually assaulted by multiple men gives Detective Kenny a new line of inquiry.
I think this kind of alternate lifestyle that she was at a young age of 18 had its consequences. And this was obviously something of interest for us as to what might have caused her demise.
But tracking them down will be an uphill battle.
Police investigated it, but they were not able to arrest anyone.
It wasn't like all of a sudden, this is it. We found out that she made a complaint that she was raped, and these are the people. There were so many different layers, so many aspects. But you always have to follow wherever investigation goes. You're not going to discount anything. Obviously, then I had to follow through with that and find out who she met and how she had contact with these people.
You as a police officer have to be aware of that at the time, that if there are other suspects, you must investigate them. It's part of your job. You can't be totally tunnel visioned on the one person and only that person. If these branches take you away, you have to investigate it.
As detectives search for the identities of the men who assaulted Eliza, the DNA results come back and open up an entirely new direction.
The first phone call I get from the medical examiner's office is that the DNA results ruled out any of the males that she met on the internet, the landscapers. It ruled out the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend. To my surprise, the DNA that is found on the towel was that of a relative, a male.
The only male relative they had was the half-brother. Raviv Gabe.
To me, it wasn't like, oh, we got the person. It was that, could have been the blood was left because he had a bloody nose the day before and they just didn't clean the towel.
DNA can be a very helpful investigative tool in that it may cause investigators to look at someone that they had not considered before, that they may want to investigate what their activity was the last 24 hours and how that related to the victim's activities.
Detectives work to understand how Raviv fits into the timeline of the homicide.
When I originally spoke to him and asked him where he was, what he was doing that day, he said he was out in Long Island making a delivery. We just started to break down where he said he was at what particular time. So we ordered his Easy Pass records. Once we get the records, we'd be able to get a photograph. As you go through the toll, he takes a picture. They're what they call robbery cameras. So anybody that comes onto the island, we can basically have a picture of who was in that car. He had a very unique delivery truck. We had photos of him coming over the Verrazano in around 1 o'clock. Now Raviv is a person of interest. Why would he say he was somewhere else at the window where she was apparently killed?
This gives them enough for a warrant to examine Raviv's cell phone records.
I carry my cell phone everywhere I go. If you go to my cell phone provider, you will find that the cell phone towers were going off in the area I'm telling you I was in. Depending on what you've got turned on your phone, you can be placed down within 2 or 3 yards of where you actually were at any given time. And unless it's a great coincidence that I just happened to be within 10 square yards of where the murder took place, and I had a motive and opportunity to do it, my cell phone is going to clear me.
When we got his cell site information puts him in Staten Island in and around 1 p.m. We knew exactly where Raviv was at any given time. 1:30, we have him in the area of the house. And then right on the corner around 2:10, so why would he lie?
Raviv's timeline gives him means and opportunity. Next comes the search for motive.
About a year or so before the murder, Raviv got married. And as a wedding gift, the family gave Raviv the business, delivering the cookies to the grocery stores.
The problem with it was that whether it was Raviv not knowing how to run it, being a young kid, just married, but the business wasn't doing well.
We found out that he was trying to keep his wife in the lifestyle that she was accustomed to. Our parents had a very nice house. They had more money than Raviv and his family, and that was a lot of pressure on him.
I've experienced several cases in my time where the suspect is a family member. This often happens when there's inheritance involved. So money is a great motivator. Money makes people kill too.
But Raviv's money trouble doesn't explain why Eliza would be targeted.
But Raviv did stay close with his sister. He still kept an eye on her, asked her what she was doing.
There was nothing that there was hostility or she owed him money or they grew up together hating each other. But you want to kind of let the facts take you to whatever place it takes you.
With Raviv looking guilty, detectives need to compare his DNA specifically to what was found at the scene.
The DNA that is found on the towel was that of a Raviv's. And the skin under her nails was in fact also Raviv's. There's nothing more solid than when somebody was assaulted and there's dead skin under somebody's nails. Why would a brother want to kill his sister for no reason? It doesn't make any sense.
Detective Michael Kenny is convinced Eliza's half-brother is the one who killed her. but concerns over a conviction still remain.
I have to go back at some point and tell the mother that your son killed your daughter, and she's gonna want to know why. The best way to know why is to get it from him. So I called Raviv and told him the ex-boyfriend had some other friends that we were looking into, and I don't know who they are. I asked him to come to the precinct and look at some photographs. So he's a little belligerent. He started giving out to me that why it's taking so long, that this case is going on for a month. We all know it's the ex-boyfriend. Why don't you arrest him already? So I have to play along, and I was apologetic. I'm trying my best, but I need your help. To my surprise, he does come in the next day, but he brings his wife. I have his wife sit in one room, and I bring him into interview room.
Armed with a meticulously constructed timeline, Detective Kenny goes in to break apart Raviv's story.
I start again asking him about his whereabouts, where he was and when. So he starts answering the questions like normally. But then he starts like, why are you asking me? I thought I'm here to look at pictures. And he was starting to get a little more hostile.
They hit him with they knew that he was lying. They knew that he wasn't in Brooklyn at the time of the death. They knew that he was in Staten Island. And they kept pressuring him. Why'd you do this? And he wouldn't crack. He wouldn't say that he did it.
It's pretty common for people to deny even with that kind of evidence, just for self-preservation.
If the police have evidence that you've done it, and they've got the skills to interview you, they will make you crack in that interview room. Very few people who have committed a crime can withstand a successful police interview.
I just laid it all out for him, that we have your DNA, we know you did it, just tell us why you did it. He kept denying, I didn't do it, but I kind of threatened him. I told him, tell me what happened, or I will go out and tell your wife and the community that you raped your sister and that you and then killed her. Because I don't have any other information, and that's as good a story as any. At this point, he started crying. He told us what occurred. He tells me that the business wasn't doing very well. So in Raviv's mind, something that might have been worth a lot of money a couple of years ago as a wedding gift wasn't worth anything. So he felt that he was still owed a wedding gift. He came to find out that his mother came into some money from the sale of a house. He believed it was more than $25,000. So he felt that she was hoarding that money somewhere. So that's why he broke into the house.
She caught him in the act, wanted to know what's going on.
The confrontation happened in that hallway and then ended up in her room.
The timeline explains moment by moment the tragic events of Eliza's final day and how Raviv's lust for money led him to kill.
Mom leaves the house regularly around 10 a.m. every day, leaving Eliza home alone. Eliza calls her boss and lets her know that she's not going to be at work on time, that she's going to come in later.
Raviv made some deliveries in Brooklyn, and then he altered his route and headed to Staten Island. He went over the Verrazano Bridge, went to the apartment that he went to many times before, entered through the back door, which he knew was open at times.
He already had gone through the downstairs, and he was in the mother's bedroom looking for the money.
Eliza's just coming out of the shower with a towel on her, and he's going through drawers. She could have grabbed the phone, I'm calling Mom or I'm calling the police, which would have escalated his anger. She put up a valiant fight. It was all skin under her fingernails, like she fought for her life.
And then he took a pillow, put it over her face, took a mattress and covered her body and left.
After he killed her, he got back into his van, which was still filled with cookies, drove back over the Verrazano Bridge, and went into Brooklyn and finished his route. He did show up later in the day, and again appeared to be a very upset brother. But it turned out to be just an act.
Raviv never found anyone in the house because, unbeknownst to him, that money was spent. So there wasn't any money in the house to begin with. I never felt Raviv had any remorse. Sometimes you feel like somebody is telling you what happened as I've been holding this in for so long. It just comes out in kind of a release of guilt and stuff, but I never felt that Raviv had an ounce of guilt. If you define a sociopath as just some lacking regret, I think you'd probably say he's a sociopath.
Police charge Raviv Gabe with the murder of his sister.
I have to tell a mother that, yeah, we solved your daughter's murder, but it was your son who did it. So, it was difficult for me to do that. And, when I went to the house and I told her, she was hysterical. She spoke about her daughter and how beautiful she was and all the things that she had going for her in the future that was ahead of her. And how the son that she brought into this family ultimately killed her.
On May 2nd, 2006, Raviv pleads guilty to a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter. He is sentenced to 18 years in prison.
1 year for every year that Eliza was alive. So he had to do the same amount of time in prison.
Seema then just started yelling uncontrollably in both English and Hebrew at her son, asking why, or how could he do such a thing? How could he commit such a crime? Here was a young, vibrant girl who had her whole life ahead of her. He ruined so many lives just for a couple of dollars and a piece of jewelry.
I personally felt for the mother. She lost both her kids in the same day. It just wasn't a happy ending.
It goes counter to the whole notion of family. It's a complete destruction of that trust that you have in one another.
It was heartbreaking. These two innocent girls were viciously murdered.
A brutal killing.
Both victims were killed by asphyxiation, cord wrapped around their throats.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
Everything was a possibility. Stalkers, someone they met or brought home.
You want to try to narrow in who's the last person in that apartment.
When you find out that they have some aggressive tendencies, that makes them even more of a suspect.
The truth will be revealed.
There was something psychologically wrong with him. Dealing with people like that, anything's liable to happen.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. New York, a place where anything can happen and where anyone can become someone.
It's a big city with plenty of opportunities.
This was the start. If you can't make it in New York, you can't make it anywhere.
But behind the glamour lies darkness.
West Harlem in 1992.
It was during the holiday season coming up, December 19th, close to Christmas, and the call came into the homicide squad.
There was a complaint from the woman who lived in the apartment below about the water coming from the apartment above. The super went up to investigate, knocked on the door, no answer.
The apartment belongs to 20-year-old Nikki Silas and 19-year-old Britney Rojas.
After not getting any answer, he decided to go from the roof down to the fire escape. And when he looked into the apartment, he seen who he knew as Nikki laying in the bed. He thought she was asleep, so he was banging on the window. Banging hard and got no response, so he forced the window open. And he went to touch her to wake her up and realized she wasn't gonna wake up. She was dead. And he went towards the front where the water leak was coming from, and he found Britney's body floating in the tub.
He picked up the phone and called the police.
Detectives Daryl Hayes and Rudy Hall of Manhattan North Homicide are assigned to the case. Inside the apartment, they find a grisly scene.
As you enter the apartment door from the hallway, to the left is a bathroom. You can see that there was a struggle. You see the sink dislodged and on the floor. And then you see Britney Rojas in the tub. She had her cord wrapped around her neck. We weren't sure at that time if that was the cause of her death. Was it that she was strangled to death, or did she drown? As you walk to the bedroom where Nikki Silas is on the bed, you can see that she was disrobed and she was dead. You couldn't tell at that time if there was a rape. You just seen her laying there. It was like she was asleep. And same thing, Nikki had a ligature cord around her throat.
That is strange when you find two bodies in one location. But this whole case was strange. I think they were good girls. They didn't deserve to die. By no means.
I think in any homicide case, a team of detectives see the side of the victim's family that's suffering for the loss of their child. And it's our job to put closure to it.
To solve the murder, detectives must piece together the last 24 hours of the victims' lives.
The ME gives you a time of death as close as they can, based on the temperature of the body, based on post-mortem. But at the time, during the initial crime scene, we didn't know that. We tried to get noise complaints if anybody heard anything, tried a timeline of when this water leak started coming into the apartment. We found on the counter there was a receipt. On the receipt, it named a particular store in the neighborhood, a couple of blocks away.
The receipt is time-stamped, December 19th, 1:15 a.m.
A team of detectives went there to talk to the night clerk that remember a female coming in to purchase some groceries about that time. So we knew that they were alive from the point of the receipt going forward.
The information gathered allows them to place time of death between 1:30 and 3 a.m.
The medical examiner told us that both victims were killed by asphyxiation. The assumption was that Britney was attacked sexually, but we just didn't have the concrete evidence. She was submerged in water, so if there was any DNA that was available, it was contaminated.
Detectives do find DNA evidence on Nikki Silas's body.
The ME couldn't say for sure that that DNA would be from the victim having sex with the murderer? Or is it that she had sex with her boyfriend and he went off to go to work and then somebody came in and attacked her?
They send the sample from Nikki to the lab and continue to process the scene.
The apartment to me looked like it was in disarray. You could see that somebody ransacked the place. Maybe they came in and the burglar was already in the apartment.
But it wasn't a straight out robbery. The way the bodies were found, if it's a robbery, you don't hang around to rape anybody. You want to get your loot and get out.
They showed no signs of forced entry at the front door. So the question comes, okay, then they either had access to the apartment or were allowed in by one or two or both people living in the apartment.
Police then discover a handwritten note at the foot of Nikki's bed.
It said, train directions to and from Queens to Manhattan, and getting off at the exit closer to their house. We were determining if somebody was visiting the apartment that never been there before, that they needed directions. We didn't know if that was something old or new. You couldn't put a timeline. It didn't have a date. How significant at that time, we couldn't determine.
In most instances, a murderer doesn't just kill random people. There's usually a connection. And if there's more than one dead body at a scene, usually the police can determine whether or not the second person was just an accident, essentially, in the wrong place at the wrong time.
With no way to know which one was targeted, detectives start to trace both girls' contacts.
In most homicide cases, we always request the phone logs. You want to try to narrow in who's the last person that somebody in that apartment spoke to. Then you want to talk to that person or persons and say, well, did they indicate they were having problems with anybody? Normally, you can get them back in a short period of time. Now, keep in mind, this is December 19th. It's close to the holiday season. And at that particular time, they had an active kidnapping homicide case going on. So it delayed the phone records coming back on a timely fashion.
They now have the heartbreaking task of contacting the families.
It's hard to make notifications to a family member saying that somebody's deceased or passed away. You want to make sure that there's other family members and a support mechanism there that could help, because you don't know how they're going to react to it.
I was just going to bed and the doorbell rang. There were 2 policemen there. And they said there's been an accident in New York. And at the time, I couldn't click it. I just couldn't think, well, Nikki doesn't drive, so it couldn't have been a car accident. And then when they came in and they told us, it was like somebody pulled the rug out from under me. And my husband just fell apart.
Detectives learn Nikki was a college student from Massachusetts, and Britney was from Queens.
Britney moved in with Nikki after Thanksgiving. Her mother still lived in Brazil. I just think she was all alone as far as having a parent around.
The family had mentioned that Nikki was into dancing and doing videos, and it was determined that she did a video with one of the Caribbean artists named Shaba Ranks.
They had ambitions of being in the show business world, the dancing and all the glitter that goes along with that.
I think that was her goal, to make contacts. If she got in the video, maybe she would have a chance to do some acting. She had been home that Thanksgiving, and she told me that she couldn't pay the rent anymore. So her plan was to finish college there for the semester and come home. She came home on the 22nd, but not the way I expected. She came home in a casket.
Detectives also interview Nikki's brother Damon about his last contact with her.
About 9 p.m., Nikki's on the phone with her brother who called her to see what's going on, and she's telling him that she's got company, they're playing cards. No names were given. Now we gotta find who that person or persons are.
Nikki's family does have an idea of who it could be.
When the police told me she had been murdered, both Damon and I said, it's gotta be Cooley.
Cooley was Nikki's boyfriend.
Nikki telling her mother that Cooley was a vicious person that attacked her and was abusive to her.
I said, I didn't bring you into this world to be abused. I said, you need to get away from that. But she wasn't gonna leave New York as far as Cooley was concerned.
Usually the boyfriend or the husband is the first person you look at as being a suspect. And when you find out that they have some aggressive tendencies insofar as domestic violence, that makes them even more of a suspect.
A man named Cooley has quickly become a person of interest in the double homicide of Britney Rojas and Nikki Silas.
He had a previous record for domestic violence. He's the prime person you want to find first. We found out that this person worked at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. When he's brought in, initially, we challenged him with the things we found out. He was forthcoming, saying, yes, we had relationship problems. We were arguing all the time, but he denied ever putting his hands on her. He denied ever threatening her. But yet, he did say that he didn't want her to be around people, socializing with people, and felt that with her being in the video business and meeting celebrities, he might lose her to somebody else that was more successful. You say to yourself, you know, hey, he has an anger issue, but is it enough to say that he would be willing to commit this type of murder?
They need to know where he was between 1 and 3 a.m.
Cooley had an alibi that had to be checked and verified. It was sketchy. It wasn't enough to say he couldn't have made this time frame of when we believe the homicide took place.
Detectives try another tack to link him to the crime.
When we said, well, we want DNA, he didn't hesitate. But it could be, hey, that's my girlfriend, of course we had sex, so you can have my DNA, I didn't do anything wrong.
Despite his shaky alibi and a potential explanation for the presence of his DNA, it's still not enough to physically place him at the scene.
We went back to the neighborhood and we discovered someone who noticed something interesting in the apartment building or in the area. Daniel Ramirez was the assistant super. He would have known who belonged in the building and who didn't. He's very observant.
He happened to be there that particular day, a little later than 1 in the morning.
Ramirez reports that he sees these two African Americans leaving the building. One looks very upset. He's so agitated to the point that he throws up, leaving the building.
The other gentleman was carrying what he believed to be either a duffel bag or a laundry bag with a safe that was protruding out of this bag. Daniel Ramirez helped the sketch be composed of what he saw of these individuals going down the stairs and out the building. Cooley had to stand in a lineup, which he consented to. And Mr. Ramirez observed the lineup with Cooley in it, and he did not identify Cooley in the lineup as a person or persons of the two people going out of the building during the time that we believe the homicide occurred. After the interview, the results came in that it wasn't his DNA. That proved to us at that time that he wasn't what caused her death.
With Cooley ruled out, detectives revisit the crime scene evidence. They examine letters addressed to Britney Rojas.
We found out that Britney was in communication with an inmate that was being held at Rikers Island, knowing that he was incarcerated at the time. And that proved that he couldn't have done it. But maybe he says, you know what, I know that they felt threatened or they were having some personal issues in their life that might have been the reason that they were killed. So we had to go interview this person and have a conversation to see if he might have been aware of any reason anybody would have been after attacking Britney or maybe her roommate, Nikki Salas. He said he loved her. He claims he didn't know that she was having any problems with anybody that he might have been aware of. But during the interview, it was mentioned that one of the locations that Britney and Nikki worked was in a peep show called Showworld.
It's a bombshell for detectives, and the Times Square location is well known to police.
When the Navy comes in with the big ships, the sailors come in, the first thing they do is they go to Showworld, put their money in, they want to see dancers on stage, take their clothes off. And that's where a lot of these celebrity dance artists and stuff would go to pick girls that sit in on a video shoot and perform and dance.
When investigators discovered that these two girls were more than students, that they were working at this well-established club, for them it opened up a whole host of other potential suspects. Establishments like this attract a certain criminal element.
So my initial thought was whatever happened to them came from Showworld.
They learn it was here where Britney and Nikki first met and decided to become roommates.
Some people believe it's a lot of seedy females that work there, but 90% of the females that do work there are school kids. You know, going to school, trying to support their education. They got a percentage of what slots money came in, and that's how they made their money. It pays well. On an average night, they can make $400 or $500.
But while Nikki and Britney lived on the straight and narrow, many of the customers did not.
You have people that come in there that have drug abuse. You have people that come in there that are sex crime perpetrators.
Everything was a possibility. Stalkers, someone they met.
The visitors, the men who are there, can see who's making the money. And it's not very difficult to imagine a scenario where the patrons of a strip club will follow home a dancer and attempt to rob them.
When you're dealing with people like that, anything's liable to happen.
Detectives question the girls' co-workers.
Britney had a regular person who she used to date from the showroom. An admirer, an older person.
He was giving her a lot of attention and cash. The term was sugar daddy.
Britney was known to spend time with him outside the club.
One of the theories was that because he knew where she lived, that maybe he was there on that particular night and something went wrong. Maybe he says, hey, you can't be around nobody else. You're gonna do what I say. I'm giving you money.
And she refused. He got angry, and he killed her.
And if Nikki was a witness, it might be you're forced to make that decision to take her out because she know who you are.
Rape is a very serious offense. There's a high incentive for you to make sure that nobody in that apartment is left to tell the police what you've done.
You want to find this person. You want to know who he is. What was he about?
The discovery that a sugar daddy dated murder victim Britney Rojas has detectives staking out a Times Square nightclub.
He comes there frequently enough that we felt comfortable to pick him up whenever he showed up. You want to talk to him, try to find out where he was during the night of this particular case. What was his interest in her? Was it solely a sex relation, or was it just, hey, you felt real bad, she's struggling, and you have money, and you just wanted to give her money for her to spend time with you? So the first thing you're looking for is any facial marks, scratches, any indication that they look like they've been in a fight, because it was a severe fight in there. You know, she put up a struggle. He had no injuries, he didn't show signs. He was really upset that she was dead.
When someone's being extremely cooperative with police, it can either be taken in a number of ways. It can be a flag that that person is trying to get their attention away from somebody else. Or it could be that they sincerely want to work with the police to try to get something solved.
You ask him a question, he answered it as best he could. I'm not gonna say it was a love relationship, but he really liked her. He felt real bad and said, if there's anything that I could do to help solve this, I'd be willing to. And the alibi that he gave was substantial enough to prove that he wasn't a part of the crime. He couldn't have made it to that location and did what he had to do and get back. His DNA didn't match Nikki's, and he was ruled out.
It was heartbreaking because these two innocent girls were viciously murdered, and there wasn't much to go on as far as clues or evidence.
Every time we thought we had something, they were ruled out. Every time we thought we had some valuable information, it turned out to be no good. So you're trying to put the time pieces together, and there was no other fingerprints in there that we can come across. So the case is what we call stale. You're back to ground zero.
For Nikki's already grieving family, what the case uncovers only causes more pain.
When they told me that she was working at Showworld, I was shocked. I felt awful. I wished she had called me and asked me for some money. But the media made a circus out of it. Every weekend, there would be something on the front page. And they were always negative, as if Nikki, because she was in Showworld, that's why she was murdered. That was all hurtful. But that was not what made Nikki Showworld. It just wasn't. She was a good soul.
After 2 weeks of waiting, detectives finally received Nikki and Britney's phone records.
We noticed that a phone call was made from the apartment to a number listed in Queens around the time the murders occurred. And we were very curious about what that phone call was about and the substance of it.
And keep in mind, we had the directions that was given to how to get to Nikki and Britney's apartment from Queens. I want to go out and invade people's privacy, find out what they don't want people to know, and get the results, and that's what I do.
So we head off to the address where the phone is located. We knock on the door, the female answers, and we announce who we are and why we were there. We had a phone call being made to that apartment. And she said she didn't remember. But she said, well, there was a voice message left on the voicemail from somebody that was looking for my boyfriend, Tommy, who's not here right now. And this person sounded very agitated and excited. And we asked if we could listen to the voice message. And she told us she no longer had the phone or the tape. Gave us a story about having an argument with her boyfriend, and she throwing the phone at him. The phone broke, and it was in the garbage.
Or is the phone being thrown away because you know what the end result was and you was trying to get rid of the evidence?
So we had the emergency service search the dumpster. We found the phone, but there was no tape.
This call may be the only link to the killer, and only one person can tell detectives what was said.
She didn't know this person, but her boyfriend would know. Later, we got a phone call from the boyfriend, Tommy. We had listened to the message, and he identified the person on the other end as a friend of his by the name of Antoine Atterbury, and he lived at an address in Queens.
Antoine was calling him to complain that the person he was with was bugging out, attacking these females in this apartment, and he didn't want no parts of it, and he was out of there. So now you got somebody that can say, we're in that apartment on the day of the incident. 2 girls are dead, and the only one that can speak on anything is Antoine Atterbury. But is he a part of it?
Detectives dig into the background of a potential witness to the brutal murders of Nikki and Britney.
Once we had the name Antoine Atterbury, we could do a criminal check. Nothing stuck out to say he was a wanted person or a known felon that got locked up numerous times. We found out that he had gotten a job at one of the premier department stores in Queens, that his mother was an upper-level manager there. So his life was positive. And myself and Detective Hall, now that we got where Antoine lives, we take a ride out to Queens. He wasn't shocked to me, you know, when we came in. He didn't look like, you know, somebody that has something to hide. He treated us like gentlemen.
I'm a good interviewer, and I'm a good judge of character. It's something that you develop over the years. We're talking to different people. You can usually tell when someone's hiding something.
Detectives ask Antoine about the murders.
He first denied knowing that they were killed. He said he didn't hear it or see it on the news.
Then, they confront him with a phone call.
He was trying to play it down. He just wouldn't give up too much information. It was like pulling teeth with him. You know, he'd give you what you want to hear at times, and that was true.
He didn't come out readily and make the admissions on his own.
As the questioning continues, Detective Hayes spots something interesting.
On the left of the living room floor is a silhouette of a safe. That safe that we see is what Ramirez sees in a duffel bag or a laundry bag of one of them leaving the building. That might be the safe that we're talking about. I cannot say how shocking it was that it would be invisible sight.
In a murder investigation, there's really no such thing as coincidence. It's the result of a lot of legwork, a lot of door knocking, interviewing suspects. It's something that happens because you make your own luck.
We asked him about the safe. He says, it's not mine. That's my roommate's. He brought that stuff here. And we went around and around until he finally admitted that he did make the phone call.
That says that Antoine Atterbury is at that apartment. So we put him in the car to go back to the 2-4 precinct. He started realizing that he's in trouble and that I might as well just tell the truth.
Antoine tells detectives his roommate, Kevin Ladson, met Britney in Queens a few weeks earlier.
He was coming out of getting a haircut, ran into her in front of the barbershop and struck up a conversation. They exchanged phone numbers. Some weeks to a month later, he bumps into her again and said, well, I thought you was gonna call me. She said, look, yeah, we can go out, but I got a roommate now. He said, oh, that's strange. I got a guy living with me too. Maybe we could do a double date. Basically, they set up this day to go out, December 18th.
Britney had given Kevin written directions for the train.
Those were the directions that we found to how to get to Nikki and Britney's apartment from his house in Queens.
Antoine says that he and Kevin got to the girls' apartment around 8 p.m. They spent several hours playing cards. Then, Antoine claims, late in the evening, he left the apartment with Nikki.
And when they came back, they found Britney's body, and Kevin was all agitated.
He tells us that Kevin snatches Nikki, and that's when Antoine starts making the call. And when he makes that call and he leaves that voice message, he says he runs out the apartment, and he made it clear, I left that apartment, I didn't leave with anything, I ran out there with nothing. He don't know exactly what time Kevin came down, but he was already out before Kevin. But the question always is, besides calling your friend, why didn't you call the police?
People put themselves into a crime scene and realize they have to get themselves out with minimal guilt.
So we don't know. Did they both do it?
The only way to verify Antoine's story is to find the other man who was there that night.
We went back to Queens looking for his roommate, Kevin Ladson. We found him on the street heading toward the apartment. And we scooped him up and brought him back to 24th Precinct. We walked him by Antoine to make sure that they both know that they were both there.
Officers will often place someone against the other person. Well, what they'll do is they'll go talk to one person, say, did you know this person mentioned this about you? It may not always be true, but it's a way to try to find out who the true culprits are.
Kevin was upset because he thought Antoine was stalking. He was more upset about that than anything else.
There's a huge amount of contempt on the streets for rats. If you talk to the police, or you get called out as being a rat, even if you're not one, your life can be in danger.
Detectives need to break Kevin's silence and discover who really killed Nikki and Britney.
He didn't show any signs of remorse. He didn't show any signs like he didn't care. He just was one of those like, all right, if y'all ain't got no evidence, I'm out of here. He was cold.
We was telling him, you know, you're gonna go down. This is your opportunity to come clean because your buddies are giving it all up and he's blaming you. He never broke them. Kept denying. Where in Atterbury was very open, remorseful. Kevin was just the opposite, which made me believe Antoine more than I did Kevin.
Investigators have one more card to play in Daniel Ramirez. The witness, who can possibly place both of them at the scene.
It was a positive hit on both of them. Daniel Ramirez says that both Kevin Ladson and Antoine Atterbury were the two people he saw leaving the building. Atterbury with nothing in his hands and throwing up, looking distressed. And Kevin with the duffel bag with the safe. You could say, wow, that's what we were waiting for. It gave probable cause that we know that both of them were involved at the time of the homicide.
This confirms Kevin was outside the building, but it's still not enough to prove which of them did it. They now need something that puts him inside the girl's home.
Antoine told us that Kevin Ladson took a lot of music CDs that the girls had in the apartment, jewelry, and one of the biggest things was the coat that Kevin gave this girl, saying he bought it for her for Christmas. Well, once we knew the coat came from the girlfriend, we had her statement saying that she received this coat from him. He was presented with that, but he couldn't deny it because he knows he gave it to her. You would have thought Kevin would have rolled over and said, wait, I didn't do this by myself. I did Nikki, but he did Britney. And that never surfaced.
The only thing I can surmise is that he didn't want to snitch on his friend. We told him, well, we got DNA there, so you might as well tell us the truth.
Once police have you in their sights, if you, as a suspect, think you're getting away with murder, you're sadly mistaken.
Detectives Daryl Hayes and Rudy Hall close in on key evidence needed to deliver justice for Nikki and Britney.
When they got the DNA results back, it's what I suspected. DA was a match with Kevin Ladson.
He knew then, I think, that he was going to see freedom, that it was done.
Detectives arrest and charge Kevin Ladson with double homicide, as well as criminal possession of stolen property.
Antoine pled guilty to burglary. If he had picked up the phone and called the police, I think the DA would have looked at him in a different light.
They now know the details behind the last 24 hours of the young women's lives and how a casual date brought them into the orbit of a heartless killer.
Antoine leaves Queens with Kevin. They get on the train. They decide they're going to the movies and maybe go somewhere to eat. That was their initial plan. But as they get to the station of 94th Street where the girls live, and they come out, it's pouring down rain. So when they get to the apartment, they said, well, you know what? Let's just wait the rain to go past and then we'll go out. So in the meantime, they're socializing, gathering, and it just never stopped. It just kept raining, kept raining. Nikki's on the phone with her brother who called her to see what's going on, and she's telling him that she's got company, they're playing cards. They decide, look, instead of y'all going back in this rain because y'all came through the subway and it's still raining, y'all can stay here tonight. They decide Britney and Nikki gonna sleep in one room, and Antoine and Kevin will be in another room. It started unraveling when they decided to sleep in separate rooms. So in Kevin's mind, what? We sleep in separate rooms. I don't want to sleep with him. I want to sleep with you, being Britney. Nikki decides that she's going to walk her dog, and Antoine Atterbury goes out with her. And Nikki purchased something from a store. While Nikki and Antoine are outside walking the dog, it's apparent that Kevin Ladson attacks Britney in the bathroom. And a struggle ensued, which caused the sink in the bathroom to dismount off the wall, and her being found with a cord in the tub wrapped around her throat.
Nikki and Antoine come back to the apartment, and they find Britney dead in the bathtub. And Kevin, very agitated, grabs Nikki, pulls her into the bedroom, rapes her, then strangles her.
Antoine decides to pick up the phone and call a friend of his out in Queens and tell him that Kevin is bugging out, he's attacking these girls, and I don't want to be a part of it, and I'm out of here.
They leave the apartment after taking the safe, some jewelry, and some clothing, and they're seen by the super helper, Daniel Ramirez, downstairs, leaving the building. Kevin Ladson was there for sex. I think he killed Britney because he made sexual advances toward her and she refused. And it angered him, and he strangled her.
In March 1995, Kevin Ladson is convicted and given 40 years to life.
Ladson, there was something psychologically wrong with him. If it hadn't been this, it'd have been something else.
Antoine Atterbury is sentenced to 7 to 21 years for burglary. But in a twist of fate, it becomes a life sentence.
Antoine ended up dying in prison in 2002. Antoine, I just think it was a person caught wrong place, wrong time.
In an attempt at closure, 20 years later, Karen Silas asks to meet with Kevin Ladson.
I wasn't a bit nervous going in. It was like I'm supposed to do this. I started talking first and, told him that I didn't hate him, but I hated what he did to Nikki, what he did to us, how he changed so many lives, and how it affected so many lives. He said he made a big, stupid mistake. He wished he had never done it. He apologized many times for what he did to us. I truly believed he was remorseful. There was nothing cocky or put on about him. He was real. I came out of that prison like someone had taken a weight off my shoulder.
In this particular case, after it was all over with, I thought to myself, I said, oh, how sad that they had to come to this fate.
Nikki, she'll be young forever. I think about her and think, would she be married? I think about her kids. If she had kids, I miss that that's not going to be. But I still have a lot of blessings. That's what counts. It's not what's missing, it's what you have.
Brutal way that she suffered. Why somebody would want to do this to somebody else is beyond my comprehension.
A barbaric killing.
She was wrapped in tape, and she had a sock shoved down her throat.
This is against every woman's instinct to leave your friend behind.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
He handcuffed her and threw her in the back of a van. This was not somebody in law enforcement at all. This was an abduction.
He's on parole, and he knows that we're looking at him.
He was not a truth teller. Well, is that because he's somehow involved in this homicide?
The truth will be revealed.
At least now we could say for sure, his DNA is not supposed to be there. I mean, I wasn't physically jumping up and down, but inside I was.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. New York City, where people come to chase their dreams and find success. But not far from the bright lights of Manhattan is the Belt Parkway in South Brooklyn and the notorious area of Fountain and Seaview.
Fountain Avenue is in one of the grittier areas of South Brooklyn. The Belt Parkway runs along one side of it. There's a creek that runs along the other side.
It's desolate. It's a dead end. No foot traffic, if any. Johns bring girls down to that area because no one's going to bother you there.
It's been a known mob dumping ground. There's no reason to go there unless you're going fishing or dumping a body.
On Saturday, February 25th, 2006, a 911 call comes in at 8:26 p.m.
Police, what is emergency? Oh, yes, I found a DOA. It looks like a DOA on Seaview Avenue in Fountain. That's in Brooklyn, right? Oh, yes, and I seen him wrapped up in a sheet. It was a male. Do you see? I don't see it. I didn't see it. Was it body? It looked like a body wrapped in a sheet, yes. All right, you want to leave a name and number, sir? No, I'd rather leave a name and number. I don't want to get involved.
We get this anonymous call that a guy saw what he believed was a body being dropped out of the back of a vehicle. and then he hung up.
Homicide detectives John Cornicello and Sean McTighe of Brooklyn's legendary 75th Precinct, also known as the 7-5, respond to the call.
We had found a girl. She had tape all over her face, and she was wrapped up in a blanket on Fountain Avenue on the side of the road. Initially, we thought it was a local prostitute. Could have very easily something happened, and the girl was disposed of there.
We weren't sure if it was a sex crime, but she's wrapped up in this blanket, and you want to keep it intact as much as possible before it goes to the medical examiner's office.
Brutal way that she suffered. Why somebody would want to do this to somebody else is beyond my comprehension.
Detectives immediately start to process the scene, looking for any clues that could help with the investigation.
We did our initial canvass in the area, obviously looked for evidence around the body. Underneath her was a snow brush, so it could be important evidence.
There's no wallet, there's no ID, nothing to kind of help us to zero in on who she is.
The detective's only lead at this point is the anonymous 911 call, made a couple of miles from where the body was dropped.
The call came from a payphone by a diner on Linden Boulevard. Can we identify the caller? We spoke to the people in the diner, and we didn't get any results there. And it's a public payphone. Fingerprints, it's not going to be of any value. So we didn't have anything to go on.
With their initial canvass netting little to identify who the victim is and what happened to her, detectives are faced with another challenge.
She was preserved, for lack of a better word, because it was freezing, February. So that puts a hamper on pinpointing, at this point in the investigation, the time of death to find out exactly where she was and how she died.
When you don't know where someone has been in the last 24 hours, and you have someone who is found in the way that she was found, it's New York City. She could have come in contact with anyone. So if you don't have a timeline, you have an unsolved murder.
With so many unanswered questions, the detectives know that the road to the killer runs through identifying their Jane Doe.
We have to start by finding out who she is. And we really had a clean slate, unfortunately, to go on.
She was found in a desolate area. There were no cameras near where she was found. There wasn't a lot of people to be interviewed. There wasn't a big area to canvass. So we're hoping that the medical examiner will find any little thing in the investigation that's going to help us identify her. Because I can't find out who killed you unless I know who you are.
The only thing detectives can be sure of at this point is that a woman's body was found at 8:26 p.m. at Fountain in Seaview. They're counting on the autopsy to reveal more about how and when she died.
Her wrists were bound from behind with plastic zip ties. Inside the blanket, she was wrapped in tape, and below the tape, she had had a sock stuffed into her mouth and shoved down her throat. So ultimately, she died of asphyxia, the inability to get air to the lungs and blood to the brain. And it became clear from the autopsy and the internal examination that she had been the victim of a brutal sex crime.
She had distinctive tan lines, like boy shorts tan lines, as opposed to a bikini. And it's February. So this person obviously was just at a beach somewhere.
Her fingernails were also cut very short, and a chunk of her hair was hacked off.
And the way the fingernails and the hair were cut, that's not normal.
Why would someone cut off a woman's hair? Makes me think that this person is very careful. They're very planful, they know what they're doing, and they don't want DNA evidence. You use binding ties because you want to incapacitate your victims. If you're somebody who wants to become aroused by having someone held captive or humiliated or tortured, you want to make sure you have enough time to do what you need to do. These behaviors would suggest to me that they may have done something like this before.
The medical examiner could say that the time of death was within 12 to 24 hours of when we found her.
Detectives must now piece together Jane Doe's last 24 hours to find her killer, starting with identifying who she is.
The Daily News put out online rather quickly the facts that the police had provided to them, that a body has been found and appears to be homicidal in such a location and such a time.
Sometimes the police and the media have a very cooperative relationship. We can help them by getting the message out that a body has been found, that a killer's on the loose. You know, asking for help from the media to get the word out about it so they might be able to identify who this person was. And that message goes out to millions of people very quickly.
The morning after Jane Doe's discovery, a young woman, Alejandra St. Guillen, comes into the 75th precinct. She's seen the news bulletin and has information. Her sister is missing.
We bring her in the interview room. I ask her, why do you feel that this person is the person you think it is? She says her sister just got back from vacation from Florida, visiting with her mom and her stepdad. And she was out with friends the night before. So that's important because of the tan lines. But we just want to make sure. And I had a Polaroid picture now from the autopsy. And I showed her the picture and she was obviously distraught. Just in total disbelief, shock, you know, hysterical crying. So without even saying a word, I knew it was her relative.
Detectives are finally able to identify the victim of this grisly homicide. She's 24-year-old Emett St. Guillen.
Emett was from the Boston area. She'd gone to a private school, Boston Latin. She was raised by her mother after her father died when she was 9 years old. Emett was following in her father's footsteps. He had studied criminal justice, and she was a criminal justice student at John Jay College. Emett was a brilliant young woman, you know, on a roll. She could have gone and done anything.
So now I have her name, I get her family members' names, I get her friends' names, and then we decide who we're gonna go to first.
The night before Emett's body was found, she was out celebrating her upcoming 25th birthday with her best friend, Claire.
Claire came into the 75th precinct. She sat down with us and went over the course of events of that night. So this particular night, they went to the Pioneer Bar in Manhattan.
In the old days, the Bowery was drunks and bums, and if you stopped your car, they would, you know, try to clean your windshield with dirty rags, and you just wanted to get away from it. But, you know, but now, in 2006, this is an up-and-coming area. So they were just going out to have a nice social night in a nice area of Manhattan.
I remember Claire telling us that it was between 3:30 maybe. Bars close at 4 in New York. Claire wants to go home, and Emett wants to still stay out. So they leave the Pioneer Bar, and they're having an argument outside of the bar. It wasn't normal for her to keep partying like this and not wanting to go home and not wanting to be with her friends.
Claire had tried to get her in a cab a couple times and was unsuccessful. And she threw up her hands and said, "You want to stay out? Stay out. I'm going home," and did.
Claire gets in a cab, she leaves. Emett now walks the opposite direction of the bar. That's 3:30. Claire now feels guilty and upset that she left her there, so Claire calls her. That's probably 3:45. Where are you? I'm gonna come get you. I'm gonna bring you home. But Emett doesn't know what bar she's at. She said, "I've got a drink. Once I finish my drink, I'm leaving."
Claire's worried about her, but you know, eventually Emett convinces her that everything's gonna be okay. I mean, this is against every woman's instinct to leave your friend behind.
And that's the last time she ever spoke to her.
Detectives have determined the last time anyone spoke to Emett was around 3:45 a.m. She was in a bar alone and had just left her best friend, Claire. But they don't know which bar.
I need to know, where did she go when she left Claire? When Claire pulls away in that cab, did she go north, south, east, west? Did she have a fight with anybody? Did somebody give Emett a ride home? A million questions, because we have to find out what happened to this girl.
I have kids, I have girls, and I remember going home and saying, here's the deal. Don't ever forget this. You go out with somebody, you leave with them. You don't leave your friends behind. Just a terrible life lesson to have to learn.
I've been out to bars, my girlfriends have been out to bars where, someone decides to leave early, you end up being there alone. Maybe you want to have one more drink. And this case really hammers home how vulnerable young women who are alone in bars after they've been drinking can be.
So a friend doesn't know where she is. A friend knows that she has a credit card. So we start getting records on her credit card usage. Where was her credit card used?
She bought 2 rum and cokes at the Falls Bar in Manhattan. That's probably 3:45. Now, she bought those 2 drinks with cash. It would have hurt our investigation tremendously.
What strikes me about this case, what really resonates, is the little breadcrumbs we leave behind in our lives. You have to ask yourself, had she not bought those 2 rum and cokes with a credit card and left some kind of trail behind, what other evidence do we have that she's even at the bar? So something as everyday, as seemingly benign as using a credit card ends up being so critical in this case.
The Falls Bar is only 2 blocks away from the Pioneer. So when you come out of the Pioneer, you make a right and a right, and you can literally walk into the front door of the Falls. So the Falls Bar is the last place we know she was.
We have a starting point. Now we can narrow down. 3:45 a.m., she's there.
Detectives are now working with a 16-hour window between 3:45 a.m., when Emett paid for her drinks, and 8:26 p.m., when her body was found in South Brooklyn.
So we're in Manhattan. My expectation is we're gonna have video all over the place. This is Manhattan, it's not Brooklyn. So we task a team with finding video. Maybe we can pick her up somewhere. Anything else that can maybe piece this together.
Security camera footage shows Emett entering the Falls Bar at 3:40 a.m. But there is no footage of her leaving the bar when it closes at 4 a.m. or any time thereafter.
Now we know where she was alive and well at around closing time on that Saturday morning. So now you have to look at the universe of characters who were in that place who might have something to say about this.
Bars and nightclubs present particular risks. They're what we call both crime generators and crime attractors. A crime generator is any place where crime arises because of opportunity, where there's alcohol and crowds involved and some people just can't control their instincts or their impulses. Crime attractors, at the same time, draw predators because they know a certain type of victim in a certain state may be there. How many people did she come into contact with that night? In narrowing down that list of persons of interest to potential suspects, you would always start with the staff. Who are the natural surveillance of the bar? These are the people working there who keep an eye on things, and those are the bartenders and the bouncers.
Detectives believe someone at the Falls Bar could be a witness, or even Emett's killer. The bartender remembers serving Emett that evening.
She's the one that actually sold the 2 drinks to Emett. She remembered Emett being intoxicated and it being the end of the night and being obligated to close the bar, and that there was talk of her having to leave.
The bartender tells detectives, at 4 a.m., bar manager Daniel Dorian wanted Emett out the door, once and for all.
The barmaid remembered Dorian wanting to get her out of the place because, and I don't know the exact words, but she had been drinking and, you know, she's crazy, we got to get her out of here.
Now it's time to go. She's like, I paid for my drinks, I'm not going anywhere. Dorian gets fed up. Maybe he doesn't want to deal with it. Maybe he's drinking. He tells the two bouncers, get her out of here.
Daniel Dorian's name is well known to police. His family owns a number of bars across the 5 boroughs.
Dorian was a piece of work. I mean, first he said he didn't remember her even being in the bar.
He said, well, I'm working, counting the money for the night proceeds. So I don't know what you're talking about.
So on one hand, you have Dorian's statement, and then you have the barmaid who paints a whole different picture. So now, again, that's like, ooh, you know, why is he being evasive?
He was not a truth teller. And one has to ask oneself, well, is that because he's somehow involved in this homicide?
You know, you go back to a hunch, the story, just something was missing. And he says he didn't know anything, he didn't see anything. Something just wasn't right.
Their suspicions raised by how Daniel Dorian's story contradicts the bartender's. Detectives question Dorian about his whereabouts after the bar closed at 4 a.m.
And he says he's in an office in an isolated area. He's providing an opportunity where he's by himself, and now he's got this wide time frame of, well, I don't know when she left, I don't know when they left, and then I was there for maybe another hour.
The bar's already closed. Nobody was with this guy. So that's something we keep in the back of our mind. Maybe he had something to do with this.
Under the circumstances, it's just too many things that have to be answered, you know, that leave a question in your mind as an investigator. It raises him to, you know, to a pretty high level. Did he try to pick her up, and then did something go bad, and now is he our perp?
Detectives have zeroed in on bar manager Daniel Dorian as their first suspect in the brutal murder of 24-year-old criminal justice student Emett St. Gian.
If you're telling me you closed the place up, she was there. We know what time she was there from the receipt. But he's just saying, I don't know who this girl is. Obviously, there's something more to that.
The Falls was connected to the Dorian family, a notorious family in New York for several reasons. The patriarch, Red Dorian, was known as a bootlegger back in the 20s. The family opened a bar on the Upper East Side called Dorian's Red Hand after the patriarch. It was known as a place where prep school kids could go and get drunk and hook up with each other. That bar became notorious in the mid-'80s for the Jennifer Levin murder, the Preppy murder. It was a black eye for the family.
In this case, we see Dorian lying initially about his alibi. This is not that uncommon in that people lie in murder investigations all the time, and they think they're white lies, and in reality, they can really derail an investigation. At the same time, it's uncanny that this is the second high-profile murder linked to a series of bars and nightclubs owned by this same family. It's like lightning striking twice in the same place.
So now we start to say, well, wait a minute. His father had this bar. Patron is in there, is killed. And it creates all of this bad press on this restaurant and the father and his business. Now we're sitting here and it's a Dorian bar and we've got a female victim who was in here at some point. Is it connected to him? Or he can see where this is going and he's trying to distance himself from the circumstances.
As detectives weigh their next move with Dorian, there is an unexpected development in the case.
You get a phone call, get to headquarters right away. Don't tell anybody what you're doing or where you're going. So I'm looking at my partner, I said, wow, the guy's turned himself in.
Daniel Dorian wants to come in. and give us a statement. But he wants to do it at police headquarters. He doesn't want to come to East New York. It's very different.
Detectives questioned Daniel Dorian again about the night Emett disappeared after closing time at the Falls Bar.
Now he says, all right, listen, this is what happened. She was there. So he tells us that he sees Emett. She's very drunk. She's at the end of the bar. And she's arguing with him. I'm not leaving. I paid for these drinks. So that's when he puts the two bouncers on her, Daryl and Tim. That's their job, escort people out of the bar. And that's what they did.
At 4 a.m., the main entrance to the bar is already locked. So the two bouncers, Tim Catella and Daryl Littlejohn, escort Emett out a secondary side door exit at 4:10 a.m., where there are no security cameras.
Ultimately, Dorian, when he did come around, said, listen, that girl walked out of here under her own power, aided by my two bouncers, Tim and Daryl.
Daniel Dorian remains a suspect in Emmett's murder, but detectives put him on the back burner while they question the two bouncers.
Danny Dorian didn't do any research on any of the people that were doing security for his operation. He had no idea who was working for him.
The police department's investigation revealed the lack of attention and concern and care that the manager of that bar exercised in hiring his bouncers. How did you get your bouncers? Oh, this one recommended this one, and he knows a friend, and I paid him $100 off the books at the end of the night, and that was it. And as long as they showed up and did their job, I was happy.
Once we start going to their backgrounds, Daryl was on parole for sure, and Tim was on probation. You have a curfew in general, but then you definitely can't work in a bar on parole. Now we know for sure you two were the last persons to see this girl outside this establishment.
Two doormen. Neither of them had any business working at the bar, interacting with vulnerable people under the influence of alcohol. At this point, the decision is, who do you zero in on?
Detectives shift the focus of their investigation to two bouncers at the Falls Bar, Tim Catella and Daryl Littlejohn. They both escorted Emett out of the bar at 4:10 a.m.
So now we're going to circle back and ask them, what happened? How did you get home that night?
Detectives start with Tim and ask him to come to the 75th precinct to answer some questions.
Tim lived in Staten Island. Daryl lived in Queens, complete opposite directions. So Daryl would go north in Manhattan towards either the bridge or the tunnel, and Tim would go to take the ferry over to Staten Island, maybe 4:15. He said, I went to the ferry and I saw Daryl talking with Emett.
But he says he has no clue to what happened to either Littlejohn or Emett after he walked in that direction.
Detectives need more than Tim's word to corroborate his story, but they're putting him on ice until they talk to the second bouncer, Daryl Littlejohn.
Daryl Littlejohn's an ex-con. He was on parole at the time, and his employment at Dorian's bar was a violation of his parole agreement.
With Daryl Littlejohn directly in their crosshairs, detectives use his parole as leverage to haul him into the 7-5 for questioning.
So, start with a basic timeline, just like we have in the case. Tell me your daily schedule, tell me your routine. How do you get to work? How do you leave work? What are your hours? How long have you been working there? Do you remember this girl? He said he argued with her about racism and crime with black men. Daryl said he was a U.S. Marshal, which we know he wasn't. And they were just arguing about crime, how the statistics for black men are off than they should be. It was just a basic argument at a bar. He says he walked her out the door and she was on her way. He doesn't know how she got home. If she got in a cab or a subway, nothing.
Littlejohn denies having anything to do with Emmett's murder, but detectives press him for details about what he was doing between 4:15 a.m., when Tim walked away from him and Emett, and 8:26 p.m., when her body was found in South Brooklyn.
He's on parole. And he's also very cautious, and he knows that we're looking at him.
I mean, we talked to him for 2 days, over 8 hours and 8 hours. He never said, I don't want to talk to you. He'd say, I borrowed my ex-girlfriend's car, and I was with her. I went to see my mom in the nursing home. He went to the nursing home. He didn't go visit his mom. I asked him, I said, maybe he went home with Emett, maybe they had sex, and she had a heart attack and died. Is that possible? But he was a career criminal. He wasn't talking.
Detectives are being stonewalled by Daryl Littlejohn, but they've obtained warrants for a sample of his DNA and to search his house and vehicle.
This was front page news. And so when the police department executed a search warrant on Daryl Littlejohn's home in Queens, the camera crews from the local TV stations were on scene, and they led their news story with a live shot from in front of the home.
We find empty bottles of bleach in the garbage. If he cleaned up the house with bleach, he was going to destroy DNA evidence. So the crime scene investigators took apart the drain and the sink, looking for hair fibers or blood. It was spotless. It was devastating.
Adding to detectives' frustration is the pressure from the ongoing media coverage and the public's desire to see Emett St. Guillen's killer brought to justice.
She was a sable-eyed beauty is the way the Post used to describe her. She was a grad student. She had a very strong will, and she went her own way. It was a reminder that things can happen and the city's a dangerous place.
You go out with friends, you're in a bar, you're having drinks, you're having a good time, you're having a celebration. Your friends go home, you decide not to go home with them, and then you're never seen again. It's shocking, and it hits home, because so many people will sit there and say, I've done that. And that's what really, I think, took over everybody's attention.
When a case has sort of captivated the attention of a city, especially a large city like New York City, there can be an immense amount of pressure for investigators to solve the case quickly, especially if there is a concern within the community that there could be a killer in their midst and that they might be next. By getting the message out, the public might be able to report suspicious activity that they saw when they were leaving a bar late at night. Basically, they can be the eyes and ears for investigators when they weren't there.
The persistent media coverage eventually unearths a significant lead for detectives.
A young woman who was a college student at York College was watching a newscast, and she had been a victim of an unsolved crime just a short time earlier, back in November of 2005, and she saw in the background with the Klieg lights of the camera, she saw Daryl Littlejohn's van, and she said, that's the van that I was abducted in. She had been on her way home from college classes when she was abducted by a man who seemed to be some sort of law enforcement and was suggesting that he was going to arrest her, and he handcuffed her and threw her in the back of a van, but it gradually occurred to her that this was not somebody in law enforcement at all, and this was an abduction. And so when the van slowed down and rolled around a corner, she opened the door and jumped out. And she escaped and survived. So what happens is the police take Littlejohn and put him in a lineup, but she can't make an identification of him. But the significance of this young woman's abduction was that there was a pattern to Daryl Littlejohn's conduct that was so similar to Emmett's case. He engaged young, attractive women and pretended to be in law enforcement and then abducted them, and they met foul play. Everyone was a suspect until Daryl Littlejohn emerged as a real suspect.
With a pattern of behavior and the means, detectives are certain that Daryl Littlejohn is the only person who had the opportunity to kill Emett.
I think, unfortunately, with people who are sexually sadistic, there may be people who require more aggression, more pain, or more suffering to be inflicted for them to achieve the same level or a higher level of sexual arousal, almost like a high. We would call these people increasers. So for him, there's an increased likelihood that he has fantasies that are compulsively driving him to do this, and that because he's aroused by power, control, and domination and hurt, increases the likelihood that homicide would be the result of any of the sexual attacks that he may perpetrate.
With the clock ticking, detectives interview a new witness, a security guard who works nights in the area where Emmett's body was dropped.
He remembers walking along Fountain Avenue and seeing a minivan, and a guy is inside the van on the phone because the phone's lit up. He didn't give us a plate. He didn't say for sure that was Daryl, but it's the same type of minivan that Daryl owns.
The fellow that worked at the landfill as a night watchman, his shift was supposed to be from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 12-hour shifts, but he wasn't always on time. The police department got his Metro card, and they were able to trace exactly when he boarded the first train or bus in the Bronx and took the train to Brooklyn and then got on a bus in Brooklyn to go to his job.
So he's supposed to be at work at 7. It's late. Now it's 7:30 as he's walking down this route on Fountain Avenue. Timing is unbelievable. He was at the right place at the right time.
The evidence was overwhelming that this was Daryl's van, and of course the description, limited though it was spot on. I felt very confident Daryl Littlejohn was not just the person who dumped the body, but he was also the killer.
Detectives are closing in on Emett St. Guillen's killer, Daryl Littlejohn, but their evidence in the case is entirely circumstantial.
Particularly if you wind up with a circumstantial case with no confession, with no eyewitnesses, the timeline becomes all that more important because your circumstantial evidence that you collect and gather either fits or it doesn't fit. And a lot of that has to do with the timing of certain things that happened leading up to the murder and then in the investigation after the murder.
Detectives do have an eyewitness account of a van matching Daryl Littlejohn's in the precise area where Emmett's body was dumped. And one detail stands out. The driver was using their cell phone.
Within a very short time, we had gotten a warrant for Daryl Littlejohn's phone records and cell tower records indicating the location of the towers that handled calls that he received at a certain time. And it turned out to be highly significant because eventually we were able to determine that there was a woman who was calling Littlejohn, and when she got disconnected, either intentionally or otherwise by Littlejohn, she called him back. And so there were these 2 phone calls that were made at crucial times, hitting off specific towers in Queens and in Brooklyn. It put him driving from Queens to the general location where the body was found and back again, right at around the time that the night watchman puts this vehicle there.
Detectives have now placed bouncer Daryl Littlejohn exactly where Emmett's body was dumped, less than an hour before police were called to the scene at 8:26 p.m.
The phone records, to me, are extremely important because they nail down the time. They put him doing something, not just in general, but at a relevant time.
But without physical evidence or a confession, they can't link Littlejohn directly to the murder.
We see in Emmett's case that they get really to sort of the 7th inning stretch in this case. They have nearly all the circumstantial evidence they need, but there's just that one missing ingredient to allow them to make the final push to the knife. And a lot of investigators may have rolled the dice and gone to trial with what they already had, but we see them hold out and stay focused, looking for that final piece to close the circle. And that often can mean the difference between making an arrest and someone being acquitted at trial and making an arrest and making sure that person never gets out.
But then, detectives get the break they've been hoping for.
Ken's calling me. The only thing he can say is, "We got DNA." I said, "What?" "We got it was an interesting case. Ken calls up and he says, we got DNA.
Forensics have come back on the snow brush found near Emmett's body. Daryl Littlejohn's DNA is a match.
They could have easily had left it behind, and had they done so, we would have been without a piece of evidence. But I'm grateful that it was whatever number of feet away from the body, and a detective chose to pick it up. I don't know, something about it made him say, I'm gonna take this, and that turned out to be very fortunate.
Littlejohn's DNA also matches a speck of blood found on one of the zip ties used to bind her hands and feet.
So at least now we could say for sure, this is him. His DNA is not supposed to be there. I mean, I wasn't physically jumping up and down, but inside I was.
It solidifies all of this circumstantial evidence to the fact that his DNA is there. How could his DNA be there if he wasn't responsible for the killing? We were so involved in this case, and it was just, you know, when we finally got the piece of evidence, it was just, it was overwhelming.
Detectives can now piece together Emett St. Guillen's final 24 hours.
So we know that Claire and Emett leave the Pioneer Bar around 3:20. They're there out front talking and arguing about going home till about 3:30. Claire gets in the cab, she goes home. Emett goes to the Falls Bar. She orders her 2 drinks at the Falls Bar, probably around 3:45.
She got into a conversation with Daryl Littlejohn in which she was talking about the criminal justice system and the incarceration rate of black people. I believe he was offended by what she said and decided that this is the woman he was going to prey on.
I think either he offered her a ride or he followed her walking and then forcibly put her in the car.
She ends up in Queens in his residence.
From that point on is when, obviously, something happened between Daryl and Emett.
She was beaten up and raped pretty badly.
There was evidence that she struggled with him and he strangled her.
Detectives now estimate that Emett was murdered between 5:15 and 7:15 a.m., based on the final autopsy results.
Now he's got to get rid of the body. So why did he choose that place? Maybe he had driven past it dozens of times and said, well, that'd be a good place to dump a body. I don't know.
As Daryl Littlejohn drags Emmett's body out of the van, his snow brush falls out onto the ground.
One thing that I'm grateful that crime scene had the foresight to pick up was a little cheap brush, because ultimately it turned out to be important.
But one question remains unanswered. What was Daryl Littlejohn's motive?
This was, in fact, the work of a random stranger and a random attack. And there's absolutely no question in my mind that this could have been the beginning of Littlejohn's career as a serial killer. And that were it not for Emmett's use of the credit card and some good investigative work, we'd be talking about far more victims.
Daryl Littlejohn is convicted for the murder of Emett St. Guillen on June 3rd, 2009. He is sentenced to life without parole.
Timeline was critical on this case. That's how you develop your story. You got a start and you got an end, and you got to try to piece it in the middle, and that's how you build your case and bring the person to justice who's responsible for that. There's nothing more satisfying than doing something like that.
You had DNA evidence, you had hair and fiber, you had phone work, you had interviews, you had canvases, you had video downloads. Every tool as an investigator we utilized. It's never gonna bring back their relative or their loved one, but you do the best you can for them to give them closure.
I've talked to Emmett's mom, and whatever success we had in the courtroom doesn't change things for her. She doesn't have her Emett back. She doesn't get to see her have children or get married or have a successful career. But Years later, they created a scholarship in her honor at John Jay. I would like to think that those who enter the field associated with criminal justice can look at Emett and say, this is someone who could have been me. That's why I need to do my job well and take it seriously, because the stakes are that high.